Colonel Fairburn Jr. is the 21st episode of the third season of the Doris Day Show. This is directed by Lee Phillips, and there will be spoilers from now as I talk about this episode. And it's pretty good. I really liked this one. It's definitely unpredictable. And I wasn't sure what direction it was going in. I wasn't sure what, if any, the message would be. And I was really keen to find out. And I think everything went in a direction that was really pleasing. It started off really uncomfortably, though, because Mr. Nicholson is going away for a few weeks and Ron Harvey thinks that he is a fair assumption. It seems like a natural thing for him to be doing. However, it's not going to work out that way because the Colonel Fairburn, has decided to bring in his son, Clifford Fairburn, also called Cliff. He's played by Richard Ely. And the moment where Doris and Mr. Nicholson have to break the news to Ron Harvey that he isn't getting the opportunity to run the magazine, it's actually really uncomfortable and really difficult to watch because I've built up this emotional connection to Ron Harvey over however many episodes. He's a brilliant character. Of course I want him to have this amazing opportunity. Unfortunately, it's not how it plays out. And then we meet Cliff, and initially he seems rather like his father. But as soon as his father leaves, he reveals his true colours. And there's this really brilliant scene, it's very well done, where we hear drums, we hear a drum kit, and Doris goes into Cliff's office, and it is just, well, it's 70s psychedelic, to describe it simply. There are posters of all kinds of things on the walls, there are loads of instruments everywhere. He has different hair. It turns out he was wearing a wig. When he's around his father, his hair is much more free, if you like. And I think his hair looks great. Absolutely nothing wrong with his hair. But he's a very different person to the person his father thinks he is. And now that his father has left the building, Cliff is able to be the person he wants to be. And needless to say, it's not the way the magazine is used to being run. And Ron Harvey, to his credit, rather adorably gets behind some of Cliff's ideas because, well, he has some very creative ideas, some ideas that involve models and centerfolds, and needless to say, it's not the way things should be run in today's world. And as I said, I wasn't really sure where this was going, what the message would be. I kind of thought, incorrectly, that it was going to be a message for Cliff, and that he was going to have to learn that you can't necessarily be your true self when you're at work. I don't know if that's the way I want to phrase that, but you have to behave certain ways in corporate environments, and this is not what he was doing. And if you don't own the company, you don't get to change things. But that's not the direction it went in. The message was actually about communication. And ultimately what happens, and I am going to spoil what happens at the end, Colonel Fairburn comes back to today's world, and he sees his son like this. And he ends up having a talk with his son, and he realizes, first of all, that he doesn't really know what his son is like. Partly his son's fault for pretending to be somebody he isn't when he's around his father, but also that they're not very good at communicating with each other. And they ultimately decide to create a new magazine. And I like that message, that sure, Cliff's approaches were not right for today's world. I think we all could have seen that. But that actually there might be a time and a place for everything. And by creating a new magazine that allowed him to express his creativity and publish the things that he wanted to publish, meant that he had that creative outlet without affecting today's world. And I think it's the best case scenario all round. Now, granted, most people are not in a position to launch a brand new magazine. But the point there is that you can't just expect somebody to be like you and to think like you and to do things the way that you always do them. And that actually, if you talk about it, you'll find that people have different interests, different approaches. And while it might not be right for one scenario, it might be great for another. And this is what we get with Cliff and the new magazine. So it's actually a really interesting episode. I don't know if I like Cliff. The performance is brilliant, very well written character, very believable character. But I don't know if I like him. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. But certainly I liked what he brought to the episode, and I ultimately liked the narrative. Although it's not one of my favourites, not even a favourite from season 3, I think Colonel Fairburn Jr. was still a pretty great episode and ultimately one that I enjoyed.